One day, son. But not today.
Football films seem to be a rarity and something that, for some reason, Hollywood or the film industry in general seems to really struggle to get right. That being said, I've watched some good football films, and when I say football, I should specify I'm talking about soccer. I hate even using the term. I have watched some good football films, some that capture what makes the game feel so special. I've also watched films so bad they made me question whether the writers had ever watched a game of football in their lives, and that is still debatable, really. Yes, I will be discussing Goal, and sadly, No, She's the Man is not on this list because, I hate to break it to you, it isn't really a football film. It just has football in it. It is a comedy. That's it. To begin, what makes a great football movie? That's the question. Well, the way I'm going to look at it is through a few different lenses. Does it understand football culture? Does it capture the emotion of the sport? Are the match scenes believable? And is it a good movie even if you don't like football? With all that being said, let's begin. I'm going to be discussing 2 of the best and 2 of the worst. So let's just get into it. To begin, let's go through the best. We have Green Street, but if you're in America, you will know it as Green Street Hooligans. This film gave me trauma when I first watched it, and to this day, it is my go-to movie if I want to have a good cry. Not that I do that, I don't want you to think I do that, but if I wanted to shed a tear, one alone tear, it would be watching Green Street Hooligans. Or Green Street. With quite an unlikely cast, including Elijah Wood and Charlie Hunnam, this is a 2005 football crime movie, which is very much focused on, as you would expect, football hooliganism. So perhaps I'm cheating slightly as the drama is mostly off the pitch, but it is still very much about the sport and the love of the game. Green Street follows Matt, an American who gets kicked out of Harvard for engaging in some snowflake action, if you catch my drift. Although it wasn't him, the man is weak and takes the payout to cover for his roommate and then uses the cash to visit his sister in London. That's how we end up here. Now, this is where things get quite interesting. Matt meets his sister's husband's brother, Pete, Charlie Hunnam. He's a teacher and a football coach, and he's also the leader of the local football firm, Green Street Elite. For those that don't know, football firms tend to partake in organised fun, which is the polite way that I can word this. And by fun, I mean meeting up with rival firms on match day and just going at it. Brawls are not just with fists, it's violent and bloody. Now, Matt is exposed to this quite quickly, but decides, like most normal people, this probably isn't for me, mostly because he's Frodo Baggins and he wouldn't stand a chance. However, he's attacked by some Brummy fans on his way home and is ultimately saved by the Green Street Elite. All of them fighting their way out, resulting in Matt being inducted into the group. Matt is an outsider, of course, he's American. He doesn't understand the culture, the rules, and he definitely doesn't understand why anyone would willingly walk into a fight. But that's what makes this so compelling, because you see just how quickly something like brotherhood can lure you in. Pete, on the other hand, he's charming, funny, loyal, and magnetic, but let's not forget he's also dangerous. I mean, he fights for fun. The film never really lets you separate those two things. You understand Matt admires Pete, but you also understand that this lifestyle is eventually going to cost someone something, and something big. Probably your life. When I tell you this film is incredibly emotive, perhaps because I'm a sucker for I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles, I won't sing it for you, but it is obviously West Ham's anthem, and they sing it a few times throughout this film. It's a film that is less about football and more about loyalty in every sense of the word. Loyalty to your club, firm, and friends. Watching Pete's development over the course of the film is great to watch. From brute to man who would sacrifice himself for the people he loves most. What makes Green Street so unique is that it understands football isn't just about the game being played. For a lot of people, it is an identity. It's family, belonging, pride, tribalism, and in some cases, violence. That's why this film works. While it romanticizes hooliganism, which obviously isn't a good thing, it also shows the consequences. It highlights how intoxicating it can be to be a part of something much bigger than yourself, while also making it clear that loyalty, when taken too far, can be destructive. If you want a football film that is focused more on the fans and the hooliganism that accompanies the game, then Green Street is the film for you. Next in our best list is, of course, Bend It Like Beckham.
Oh, what are you doing, man?
It's safe to say that despite the film being over 20 years old, which is mental, no football movie has ever really topped it, and I don't even see it ever being topped. It remains the gold standard for a good reason. Released in 2002, Bend It Like Beckham stars Parminder Nagra, Keira Knightley, and Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. Side note, whatever happened to Jonathan Rhys-Meyers? I feel like he just disappeared off the face of the earth. I feel like I did have a big crush on him when I was younger, maybe specifically in Bend It Like Beckham. And then he vanished. Was he in the Tudors? Where is he now? Do we know? Welfare check. So in Bend It Like Beckham, we follow Jess, an Indian girl from London who is utterly obsessed with football. Her parents don't support this though, they want her to focus on studies. However, when Jules, a player from a local club, takes notice of her, she goes for a tryout and is recruited. Now, what makes this film so fantastic and more nuanced than it may initially appear is that it's not just discussing football, but also identity as well as women in sport. As you would expect, there's family conflict throughout the film, with Jess's parents not supporting her dreams of being a footballer, but this doesn't make them the villains of the story. Jess's mother wants stability, and her father had dreams of his own, and ultimately they were crushed due to racism. Their concerns come from a place of wanting to protect their child, so you can't fault them for that. What is great about this film is it never once asks Jess to reject her culture. Instead, it challenges at times whether tradition and ambition can coexist together. What I find most fascinating about this film in 2026 is that it predicted the development of the women's game. I mean, in 2002, the WSL wasn't even formed yet. It wouldn't come until 8 years later. Yet it still feels as though it's advocating for women's football before most people were even paying attention. You could say that for many young girls, this was their first time seeing themselves represented on screen as footballers. You look at players like Leah Williamson, Alexia Putellas, Alessia Russo, they're household names now in the world of women's football and beyond. However, in 2002, it didn't seem entirely possible that there could be a professional pathway for young girls or even to see packed stadiums for women. I think an important element to highlight here is this. It's a film that very simply makes you happy. It really does. It's about friendship, culture, football, but it's also a film about chasing your dreams and having the courage to choose your own path, despite it not being a safe option. Now, those are the two football films I love and would highly recommend if you've not watched them, although I assume almost everyone and their dog has watched Bend It Like Beckham, but if you've not watched Green Street, highly recommend. We're now transitioning into the worst, so this is a warning to you all. Do not watch these two films. I beg of you. It would just simply be a waste of your time. To start, we have Goal 3. Now, this is the third and final installment in the Goal series, franchise, trilogy. And I think it's safe to say we were all breathing a deep sigh of relief when we found out this would be the last one, because oh my god, did it go downhill. I have a huge soft spot for Goal. I should state that, because it did very much feel like you're watching someone's dreams play out on screen, even dreams that you have. It was a fairy tale on the big screen. To give you some context in case you're not familiar with this trilogy, Goal was initially released in 2005 and was centered on Santiago Muniz, a Mexican immigrant in LA who gets discovered by a scout for Newcastle United while playing for his local team. Anyway, all you need to know is that he makes it, signs to Newcastle United, faces challenges that come along with being a professional footballer, especially being in the spotlight. Also, he has asthma. I think that's a big plot point. I forget that part. I'm pretty sure he has asthma, so that is something as well. Another challenge. In the sequel, he signs for Real Madrid. A few players make an appearance. It is one of those films where at times you're watching it and you're like, is this him spliced into something, or is this player actually there? David Beckham does pop up, long hair Beckham, so you know how old this film is now. And goal 3, well, that's the train wreck we are about to discuss right now, so brace yourself. The film somehow completely abandoned Santiago, which is one of the primary reasons that the film is so awful. Imagine spending 2 films rooting for the protagonist, following him on his journey from LA to Newcastle to Madrid, and then the 3rd film just says, never mind. We're going to move on from him now and let's find someone else that you have no idea who he is. And suddenly you're supposed to be emotionally invested in this character. That is essentially what happens here. The film is set during the 2006 FIFA World Cup in Germany, but instead of Santiago being front and centre, we follow Charlie and Liam, with the majority of the film focusing on Charlie's personal life, with the World Cup at times feeling like just background noise. What works in the first movie was that it felt like a classic dream story being played out on screen, someone from nothing making it big. It made us believe that with enough talent and determination, anyone can make it. Whereas Goal 3 feels like several unfinished films stitched together, no longer focusing on the game itself. How do you make a film set at one of the biggest sporting events in the world? No, it is the biggest sporting event in the world. How do you make it feel so small? Well, Goal 3 successfully manages to do it. It isn't just a bad football film, but also seems to forget why the audience fell in love with the series in the first place. It isn't just bad, it's just pointless, which is almost worse than just being a bad film. It's unnecessary, didn't need to be made, and ultimately is a massive, colossal waste of your time, so do not watch it. And finally we have United Passions, another hard no on the list. Never waste your time with this one, this was horrendous.
What do you think of that?
The film is utterly baffling, and when you learn more why this film was made, you'll begin to understand why it's such a disaster and a slap in the face to football fans. I mean, this film makes us all feel like idiots, as though they thought, this is what they want, this is what the fans want. Oh, it wasn't. It certainly wasn't, and you'll see why in a second. United Passions is a 2014 film about the origins of the world governing body of association football, aka FIFA. It stars Tim Roth and Sam Neill, and should be noted that this film was 90% funded by FIFA and was released just as corruption allegations surrounding the organisation were everywhere and impossible to ignore. It's not really what we were looking for, to view the FIFA leadership as noble pioneers during one of the biggest scandals in sporting history. In case you aren't in the loop, some of the scandals centred around bribery, specifically that some of the officials, allegedly, were accepting bribes in exchange for votes and commercial deals. In 2015, Swiss police arrested 7 FIFA officials, with 40 more being implicated in the wider investigation. The film essentially ignores major conflicts and instead decides to gloss over them or just conveniently forget them entirely. Considering FIFA funded it, of course they wouldn't want them to seem like the bad guys, even though they were at that time. Allegedly. Not just that, but the film itself just makes football seem boring, which is the worst part of all of this. Football is the world's biggest sport, yet United Passion spends most of the film focused on the boardroom politics and meetings. Want to turn football into a snooze fest? We'll just focus on men in suits congratulating each other. Job done. We can't overlook the stacked cast in the film. As I mentioned, Tim Roth and Sam Neill are front and centre, which makes this failure even more surprising and makes you question why the hell they did it. I should have looked up how much they got paid. I bet it was a ton. The cast is superb, with unlimited access and FIFA money behind it, and yet somehow they still managed to produce one of the strangest films ever made. This film was so poorly received, it made only around $900 on its opening weekend, which, as you would expect, makes it one of the biggest box office flops ever. The fact that even football fans didn't want anything to do with this film tells you everything you need to know. $900 is mental. Ultimately, United Passions isn't just a bad football film, it's an example of an organisation trying to tell its own story and instead just creates a comedy. So if you want a good laugh, maybe check it out, but also don't support the film. I think that's how I feel, don't support it. What this list really highlights for me is just how difficult football is to translate onto the big screen. And the best films, well, they don't need to be the ones with the biggest stars, but they're instead the ones that understand what football means to people, whether it's identity and bend it like Beckham or following one's dreams in goal. Football has given us some incredible stories over the years, but when films forget the emotion emotion at the heart of the game, that's typically when things fall apart. Well, be sure to let me know what your favourite football film is in the comments below, and what your least favourite is while we're at it. And maybe films that I should have mentioned that I have not mentioned. I mean, there's so many films to discuss, but ultimately there's just not enough good ones. We need to make more good ones. But this is the thing. Football films, soccer, is hard to do. You know, American football, you toss a helmet on someone and you can just put them in a real game. It's fine. Whereas football, incredibly difficult to pull off. Anyway, I digress. I'm rambling now. Let me know if you're watching the World Cup right now and who you're cheering for. Come on, England. But also, I pulled France in my company's sweepstakes, so I actually need them to win. For the glory. I will see you in the next video.